Hey everybody, 6 times the charm. I keep having to do this video over and over again because I've got my dog outside who's scratching himself like crazy. I've got people who are calling me. A real estate agent just called up to say, hey, we're opening a store in the thing. Like, bugger off, mate. No one gives a crap. So, my apologies to you if you have to call people randomly for your job, but it's very annoying, especially when you're trying to do a video. Here we go. I just made a 30-minute version of this video. I want to do a much shorter version. If you want to see more detail about anything that's in this, go check out the 30-minute one where I go into a lot more detail. This is meant to be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you know, something quick for noobs to be able to have a look at. Basically, someone said, hey, do some stuff for WoW. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like doing things for WoW because it changes all the time. The same as MechWarrior. I don't like doing things for MechWarrior Online anymore because it changes. And people get grumpy when the information you're giving them is not accurate. They get the shits. So I want to start this with a disclaimer that, you know, this information, whilst is relevant at the moment, we're about to go into 7.2 in World of Warcraft Legion, may not be relevant to you later on. It's 100% accurate. I'm going to try and make it so that what I'm saying is still useful regardless, but it's important for you to know that, you know, this stuff is... It changes. On an online game, it's always changing. It's constantly changing. So what I want to talk about here is just the very quick version of what a sort of new player to World of Warcraft needs to know about gear and stats. And then where to find more information if it does change as well, we're going to talk about. So here we go. When the computer wants to see if you're hitting something and doing damage to it, it looks at derived stats. These derived stats come from a combination of these primary and secondary stats. Now, these change regularly. How important different things are changes all the time. I remember when I first did my hunter, my very first hunter, you know, and that was, you know, back in vanilla days. Mastery, no one had heard of Mastery. Like, it wasn't a big deal. And then they made a patch change, and all of a sudden, hunters needed to start having Mastery. So we had to go out and find all that stuff. I used to also have a Warlock who the whole build was sort of designed around. I get very frustrated when I have to wait in my button mashing because I've run out of mana. And that I had a Warlock that was designed with, you know, Spirit, which used to be a primary stat, and mana regen is like their main focus, and that way I never got burnt on not having enough mana. I could always just cast things like crazy, and by the time my channeled spells or cast time had actually hit the you know, end of the thing, I had, you know, regained more or less the same amount of mana that I'd lost. So and then they changed it, and now it only works for healers. So it's constantly changing. But what you need to know is that these different things affect your derived values, and the derived values are important. Now, we'll talk about where you can find out which ones you need to have in a minute. But basically, primary stats: stamina, intellect, strength, agility. It used to have spirit. It used to have something else as well, but they don't have them anymore. They're not useful. So they just have those 4. Secondary stats, which is what you're going to see more of, crit, haste, mastery, multi-strike, versatility. If you're a tank, you might have bonus armor. If you're a healer, you might have spirit. If you do PvP, you might have PvP power. You will never see PvP resilience on gear anymore, I don't think. So, and basically, you know, different classes need different things. Each thing does a different, you know, benefit, and different bonuses only appear in different sorts of armors and things like that. This stuff, it's not too difficult. If you want more information, there's that 30-minute video. You can also go online and find out lots of stuff about this, but this is generally all you need to know. So if you have a read of this screen, you will have seen pretty much everything you need to know for what each thing does. You also might have minor attributes, which do little useful things. They also increase, you know, item level. They might give you a gem socket. I go into a big rant about gems and how they're really outdated. They don't play with the gems as much anymore. That might change again at some point. Like it's always changing is the lesson to learn here. But the important part of this page is the derived stats, which sort of explains everything. Now, each of these attack power, attack speeds, you know, have like a critical strike, have like melee and ranged to them. Spell power is just spell power, cast speed is cast speed, etc, etc. Mana regen, you can't increase it if you're not a healer anymore. Dodge is a big deal. You have to actually face things. I also explained the global cooldown. So cast speed is important for all your spells. So everyone has spells. You know, it doesn't matter if you're not a mage. Like, everyone has what is called a spell, and that's your abilities that you're using. You know, things like barrage and shield block and all the rest of it. Global cooldown, if you don't know what that is, which you very well may not because you're a beginner coming to a beginner's guide, is basically, you'll notice that if you just button mash, it doesn't cast a spell every time you hit the button. There's like a little 1 second timer or 2 second timer or something that gets calculated on. That's so the computer isn't constantly doing math when you button mash. And if, you know, everyone in the world was button mashing on World of Warcraft, then very quickly the servers would go down, right? So the global cooldown is just updating everything once a second. More or less, that's how it works. There's different stuff. Important to know that, you know, dodge and parry and block don't affect spells. Dodge and parry only affect melee attacks. They don't affect ranged attacks as well. Important to know, resistance only affects spells. But basically, when the computer's making its maths, it goes through and checks out these derived stats, right? Now, as you can see, all these derived stats, they come from the previous screen. So if I go back, you know, we can see that, you know, all of these things, that's what you're going to get your bonuses on gear. And then they relate to the derived stats, which is, you know, where the computer does its maths. So you might be thinking, okay, that's all well and good. How do I know what's good for me and my class? And my answer is, I can't do a video on that because every class is different and it changes all the time. Every patch, there's a change that's going to influence that. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump over here. I'm going to show you. If you want to know about all the ins and outs of what's happening in a change, things like Wowhead, you can just Google the patch that you're about to go into. You know, there's often articles written. We're coming into 7.2. So there's all sorts of really cool stuff that's happening with that. But this one, there was a massive stat change in 7.1.5. You know, the item level has drastically changed. You know, it's now, it works very differently, the ins and outs of how that works. If you want to see how all these different things work, you know, come to these websites, do a Google. Wowhead is usually very trustworthy, and you can see that all these things are like, you know, you see mastery's replaced with this, mastery's replaced with that. Like, they're changing everything constantly. And it's a really big deal, especially if you're trying to make videos and stuff. People get upset. So, you know, the best place for you in the future is to come and check out these different things. If you're looking just to build your class, I would highly recommend Icy Veins. Because, you know what, we don't need to know about all that stuff. And that's the beauty of this. This is the noob guide for you, is you don't need to know about all that stuff. If you're interested in just doing, you know, like leveling up or whatever. So let's say we pick, you know, the Death Knight, the Blood Death Knight, which has recently had some changes. You come down here. The important thing for stats is you come to stat priority. Right, stat priority there. And it gives you, it tells you, you know, this is why your class needs this. This is what it needs. And depending upon which one you want to do, this is the thing that you're going to have to, you know, fill out. This is the things you're going to have to collect when you're doing your raids and stuff like that. So, and that's going to happen for, you know, all the different things. Let's say hunter. Let's say you're a survival hunter. They've had a massive change very recently. So you just scroll down to where it says, you know, stat priority. It's usually after the rotations, and they tell you, you know, these are the things that you'll need for those, you know, choosing better gear, how to build different, you know, different gear groups and stuff, and why the statistics are important. Knowing these websites is going to give you a big help later on. So, you know, that I would highly recommend checking those out. And as things change, that will change too. All right. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys later. Ciao for now. Hopefully this was a shorter video and much more entertaining. Bye.